are still many questions about the sudden resignation of Conservative Cabinet Minister Peter Penashue. The surprise announcement, broken by CBC News yesterday, took many by surprise. The former Cabinet Minister admitted that he went over the legal spending limit and accepted corporate donations, something the law says you can't do. Penashue blames a key campaign advisor. But where should the buck really stop? And will an investigation into the illegal spending begin before a by-election is called? We'll put those questions to the man who should know. Joining me now is former Chief Electoral Officer Jean-Pierre Kingsley. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
First off, I just want to get your reaction to the Peter Penashue case and what happened.
Well, this is big news. I mean, no member of Cabinet leaves Cabinet without reason, and he indicated what the reasons were, and it is big news. The fact that there's a recognition that the Elections Act of Canada was broken and that it deserves for a minister to resign. And there's a recognition by the Prime Minister that this occurred because he's accepted the resignation. So it is big. There's no doubt about that.
So in the end, even though he paid the money back, Mr. Penashue still overspent by about 21% on his campaign. Do you believe someone who accepted $30,000 in ineligible campaign should be allowed to run again? Well,
the issue is not as clear-cut as that. I know that this is the wish that has been expressed, but the fact that Mr. Penashue has admitted that the law was broken, but that he did not do it, does not preempt the Chief Electoral Officer having to do what he needs to do and the Commissioner of Canada Elections doing what they have to do. There's a recognition that somebody broke the law. They will have to go in there and find out who did break the law. They will have to determine if that was done willfully and therefore if accusations should be brought forward in a court of law. A recommendation would then go to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who would then decide whether to prosecute or not, and then a court would have to decide if the person is guilty or not. And if that were Mr. Penashue, who would be found guilty of that, then he could not run. Now, time is a factor because our court system is made so that people have a right to defend themselves, and it takes a certain amount of time. But if he should run, and if he should be elected, and then he's found guilty of that infraction, then the House of Commons would have to consider what to do and consider removing him from his seat.
The election was almost 2 years ago. We're only seeing action on it now. Does Elections Canada need more powers, staff to conduct these investigations so quickly? Because as you just mentioned, time is of the essence in this case.
The resources are available to Elections Canada as we speak. There is the statutory authority to spend money to achieve the purposes of the statute, and that includes investigations. The matter of recommending to the Director of Public Prosecutions, how long he would take to make a determination whether or not to proceed with accusations is something that I think we're going to have to look at more closely, because before that did not occur. Before, it was the Commissioner who made that decision unto himself. The law was changed in 2005 to include this additional step. And, we'll have to determine if this is best serving the interests of Canadians who want to see justice done, but who also want to see it done in a timely manner.
It almost seems like it has to be done before a by-election, don't you feel?
Well, it's going to be very hard to do all of that within 6 months. And by the way, the 6 months is the maximum time. It could be that the by-election is called within a matter of weeks, or maybe this weekend, for all we know. It all depends. And if it is called this weekend or within a matter of weeks, then there's no way that all of that work can be done. There's just no way.
So, do you feel that Elections Canada has enough teeth when it comes to issues like this, when it comes to the robocalls issue? Does it have enough teeth?
At this stage, yes. Now, there is a request that there be some additional powers granted to the Chief Electoral Officer. I think we will see more of that in the near future when people have a better idea of how the robocalls investigation proceeded. But I don't think it's going to be major, but it may preempt certain steps that are now required that would not be required, and that will save time, a certain amount of time. I don't think it'll save a whole lot of time, but it may save some time.
And when it comes to the Penashue case, do you feel that these were small breaches of the law?
This is not small potatoes. The maximum that could be spent in the writing was somewhere in the vicinity of $85,000. When there is a contribution in kind by a corporation, equivalent to $17,000 in flights, at least that. And corporations are not allowed to make any kind of contribution to a campaign. Of course, this is not small. And this is what I was saying earlier. There is a clear admission by the fact that Mr. Penashue left cabinet, resigned, and the Prime Minister accepted. There's a clear recognition that these were important breaches of the statute.
Important breaches of the statute, but still able to run in the next.
Well, it depends on who did what. I mean, Mr. Penashue said in his statement that it was his official agent. And people are saying the official agent, you know, may not have been completely au fait, but there is a training program that the Elections Canada puts forth for these people before every election that they must follow in order to, at least they should follow, in order to understand what is required of them as official agents. These are not small jobs. They're important positions in our electoral system.
And that comes to the question, Mr. Penashue blamed this on inexperienced volunteers and his official agent, Reg Bowers, who was replaced last fall. Is that reasonable, or does the buck stop with the candidate?
Well, you know, the official agent signs the return that goes to Elections Canada, and so does the candidate. It is the candidate who's the candidate. It is not the official agent who's the candidate. The signature is required because it means something. We do not ask you to sign something, and you do not sign something unless it means something.
So to me, that sounds like the candidate is responsible.
There is,
ultimately,
prima facie, there is a responsibility on the candidate to ensure that the statements that are being made on his behalf and which he signs are accurate. There is an obligation to do that. This is why I'm saying there's more to be done with Elections Canada here in terms of pursuing this matter.
Jean-Pierre, Kingsley, thank you for coming in and helping us out understand this today.
A pleasure.